stuff. But
Yeah.
all right, we're live.
We're
Nice.
live. Hey. Great. Good to see you, Narwhal. Nice to
Yeah,
meet you.
good to see you too.
Awesome. All right. Well, that did give us a little bit of time there, but yeah, again, thanks for joining me on my channel, and especially thanks for joining me on this channel. Like, I only have a few subscribers, so it's pretty cool that you're able to do that, and you're willing to do that, really. But yeah, so we'll get into this with crowdfunding 101 and do this
Yeah,
right here.
no problem. I like talking to smaller channels too because it's fun to just answer questions and stuff. And I
Yeah,
just
for
came off
sure.
a stream with Ethan, and there was this special guest who was kind of drunk, and he was just talking the entire time. So I was just kind of sitting there lettering a comic in the background. Like, I'm actually looking forward to talking to Ronco Pop because I'll actually be able to get a word in.
Okay, for sure. That was just a little bit ago, or what?
Yeah, that was like an hour ago or something.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, so Earthbound. Yeah, so
Yeah.
crowdfunding, if it's like a 101 thing, it's worth mentioning too. Like I did some crowdfunds in my 20s, and I did an Earthbound crowdfund on Kickstarter a year kind of before Comicsgate kind of got rolling.
Uh-huh.
And that one, it was a floppy, and it was technically successful, but the goal was like 1,800, and I think it raised about 1,800. But it was weird. I was like, I had to ask my parents to back it. I asked my friends to back it, which I don't do that anymore. It feels good to not do that. To like
Right.
when
Yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
real, yeah, like real audience that actually likes comics. You're not like just trying to peddle it to people who don't even
Yeah.
like comics or whatever.
No,
So then
definitely.
it was crazy to see the change though from the once Comicsgate got rolling, and I did get on Ethan's channel pretty early when I launched my campaign, and a lot of eyes got on it, and it got this pretty big boost. And then there is some things though, because even I was like real learning in that like way, and for your first campaign, it could
Mhm.
almost be a situation where if it were too successful, like if you like, for example, if you don't charge enough for international shipping, and then if you get like 100 international backers, you could
Oh,
actually like lose money, so it's good, it's almost good if your first campaign isn't super huge, because then you can learn like even like the little math of getting the right international, charging the right amount for that, and like maybe getting a stamps.com account. I do kind of recommend that. This is if you're going to
okay.
fulfill yourself, which I imagine probably you would. um
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's
So,
just, where were
uh,
you going to say something?
yeah, so I was just gonna go back just a little bit on this because I was just curious. So like I just kind of knew about CG and whatnot. Probably around 2020 or so, but I know it's been going since a few years before that. And so I just wanted to get in. You mentioned the one campaign you started right before the Earthbound one. You said, right? Did about
Yeah, and that was
1,800.
Earthbound. That was also an Earthbound campaign. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So when you launched this first campaign on Indiegogo for this Earthbound, you were already part of CG.
Yeah, that was like Comicsgate was like just kind of starting to be a thing.
Okay.
I think Ethan had grown his channel through the Fandom Menace the
Hmm.
previous year, so he was over 100K subscribers. So he was having big live streams at that point. But it was like, yeah, like 2017. I think he might not have even launched Cyberfrog yet, or else he launched it a few months prior. Um,
Oh, I see.
and same with it was like the summer of Jawbreakers had been launched. So it was like those first kind of exciting times, a lot of tumultuous kind of stuff going on too.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Yeah.
was drawing fan art of Cyberfrog though, and that's how I got on Ethan's kind of big Comicsgate live show, and that was like a big audience. And so it was a weird experience too, when I had never even like done a crowdfund that had breaking 2,000. So pretty quickly it was at 8,000, and that felt to me like $1 million.
Oh, I
And so
bet.
like that's another one where you can almost like, you got to recalibrate your brain to like, all right, it's not $1 million, like don't. And that's happened to some people where the success can kind of make them careless with how they spend the money. So it's definitely
Right.
good to keep the budget. And people give this advice too, is to almost have the budget before you even launch, because sometimes like you'll do the goal, and you'll say the goal is 500, but if we raise, you're hoping you'll raise like 5,000 or whatever,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like that's not exactly having a budget a lot of times. So sometimes it is good to be like, the goal is 5,000. And
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree with that. I know like the bigger guys who campaign and get bigger campaigns going within the 5 figures and 6 figures. They can do those because they say it kind of works the algorithm a little bit when it's such a low goal. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like if you don't have that big of an audience or you're just starting out, making sure you hit that goal that's not at 500, but like you were saying, like 2,000 or 5,000, whatever you need to cover that printing cost. I definitely
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, and I on the first two campaigns, which are the Earthbound softcover and hardcover, like I made some kind of mistakes that are like the early just learning stuff. But one thing was too, I'd never done the printing process before, and I was working with a printer who, in hindsight, I eventually sort of like fired him or whatever.
Hmm.
But he was like not professional. He would take 2 weeks to email me back, and the whole print process. I had all the art done when I launched the campaign.
Okay.
I turned in the print file like as soon as the campaign ended. It took a year to get the books, to get them
Oh
even through the
wow.
print process. And I thought it was normal, but I was stressing out the entire time too. And it's crazy. It was like crazy in hindsight that that happened. And I thought that was normal and like
Mhm.
tolerated it. And but so it took, so the books ended up being late, especially from the first campaign, and then they weren't fulfilled when I launched the second campaign, which is technically kind of just to add on to the first campaign, but it was the hardcover, which
Right.
sometimes people will do that where they'll add a tier in the middle of the campaign, but still it's a little weird to launch another campaign if you haven't fulfilled the first one. So I technically did that. I don't do that anymore at all, but I did
Sure.
do it that first time, and people didn't seem to care too much. And then when I fulfilled, I was like, yeah, it was like I was 9 months late, but it had been like a year since the campaign kind of had launched.
Okay.
And I did get like one, I think I got one email of someone saying, like, because it's so late, I won't be backing you anymore.
Oh, I see.
And that
Okay.
if one person says it, it means like 5 to 10 people are thinking it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a little late, but then a lot of people too, they understand as long as they get their book, and especially they know, like if it's your first campaign, that's why you learn so much on your first campaign. And now it is like even more of like part of the culture is like you definitely don't want to be too late. You definitely got to fulfill, got, and if you're tried and true, like if you've fulfilled a couple of campaigns, that really helps. And I think Ethan says like he probably won't even have people on his channel anymore unless they've fulfilled multiple campaigns.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. So going back to you were talking about the hardcover one, I wanted to talk about that for just a minute because I thought that was what was your thought process on doing that? I know like people like John Malin, he does like the second chance campaign. Was that something what you were trying to do, or you just wanted to have Earthbound the part one in hardcover?
Oh yeah, well there's a little bit of a story to this too, I guess, because then um again, just kind of learning as I went, I was a little bit like overzealous, you might say, although it ended up being all working out, and I'm actually glad I did it. So it's not necessarily a mistake, but I was the first printer I worked with that took forever. It was a liaison who worked with a Chinese printer, and they
Mm.
did it economies of scale, where it's actually pretty much the same price to order 1,000 or to order 2,000. So I was like, when I had only sold like 500 copies, but I was like, shoot, let's order 2,000, let's go for it. And I didn't even know where I'd put the boxes, but it's like at least 27 boxes. So like kind of like a big cube, a big crate worth of, throw them somewhere. And I had a friend who ran a owns a restaurant in Bellingham in Washington. So I actually called him and I was like, "Can I use a little bit of your storage?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So that was kind of my plan, or over ordered the boxes. But then that actually did kind of put the whole profit margin super tight on that 14,000. It was like breaking even or losing money at that point.
Oh,
If
okay.
you count like fulfillment too and all this other stuff. And so I was kind of just wanted to get a little more money in. So I was thinking what I could do. And I was like, oh, I can offer a hardcover. Cause actually that's another one where I got feedback. A lot of people wanted the hardcover. And that was part of what came because it too is the Chinese printer included of the 2,000 for free. They make 500 of them, or not for free, but they upgrade 500 of them to hardcover for $1 per copy,
Oh,
which
wow.
is super cheap. Or yeah, I think that it's something like that. It's like it's definitely worth it to do it. So I did that. So then I had these hardcovers that I hadn't even offered before that are like an upmarked item a little bit. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how it all kind of fell
Oh,
into place like
okay.
that. And the whole process too, like you're seeing, I'm seeing like 14,000 feels like $1,000,000. Then this one did 27,000, and it adds up
Yeah.
to like, yeah, like in that 40,000 range, which is like really good to be able, that's pretty much where I quit my day job and I became a full-time comic artist, kind of around that. um Income for me is that, that's not all profit obviously, but that's
Right,
enough for
right.
me to live
But
off
yeah,
that.
definitely. Awesome. Cool. So after Earthbound the hardcover, then you didn't go in directly into part 2 of Earthbound. You went with Foreign Agent. So I guess my main question on this part was like, did you think about going into Earthbound Part 2 first, or did you kind of want to switch it up to work on this story? Was this something like you're just kind of itching to tell, and then you wanted to get back to Earthbound?
Yeah, that's a good question, because so I had been working on Foreign Agent and Earthbound kind of simultaneously. So Foreign Agent was already like half done, kind of even when Comicsgate started, and Earthbound was half done. So I definitely just wanted to just release it because it was kind of time, because it was done, and so I'd released that one too. But then as I've gone, I've been wondering about that, of like, if you have an IP that people are responding to and they like, do you keep going with that? Because I probably would be making a little more money if I kept doing Earthbound books and didn't take breaks in between.
Yeah.
But then it's hard for me too, because I like the artistic fulfillment of doing whatever I want. There's like a
Right.
little bit of a balance, but I think as long as I'm still doing Earthbound, I wouldn't want to give it up and quit working on it.
Okay.
And yeah, and there's still some Earthbound books in the works, and part 2 finished that arc, which is coming up. But so Foreign Agent, one note about this one too is this was the book that I had one mainstream-ish comic job before Comicsgate, and before, yeah, like too much crowdfunding or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And it was called Machete Squad, and I learned like a lot on that book. And then when that kind of wrapped up, though, I didn't have anything else lined up, and that's when I got the job at the Fred Meyer Deli,
Sure.
and I was kind of depressed because it felt like a step backwards. But
Right.
yeah, and that company that I was working for, they're called Dead Reckoning. I pitched them Foreign Agent because it was kind of up their alley, and they got back to me and they said like, everyone here at the office thinks it's great and really cool, but we're gonna pass. And
Hmm.
that was kind of the moment too where I was like, all right, I'm going full into Comicsgate then, because you guys aren't like supporting me,
Right.
and I don't know where else I'm going to be able to like have a shot at maybe making a living doing this. So then I'm full in Comicsgate, because I'd kind of been lurking up before that point,
So
just kind of.
real quick on that are they still around? Are they like an indie publisher or?
Yeah, they're still around. They do like, it's a little more military themed
Oh, okay.
books is like what they do, like graphic novels and stuff. And they're like possibly a little woke, I'm not sure. But
Sure.
they did call me, because once I was publicly kind of hanging out on streams and tweeting uh like around with Comicsgate, I got a call from them and they were like, "You've been spending time with some unsavory people, and
Really?
please don't do that. Yeah, if you're associated with us." And I was like,
Oh, wow.
well, I'm not associated with you guys anymore anyway. So yeah, I left on kind of bad terms with them. I don't talk to them at all, even after that phone call. Just we went our separate ways.
Right.
But in the end, it was such a blessing that it went
Yeah.
the way it did, because I own Foreign Agent. Like if
Right.
they would have, and even the numbers in my head, like I was thinking, maybe they'd, yeah, pay me like $20,000 for a year's worth of work to make this book, and that's comparable to what the previous gig I had with them was, which lasted a year, and it was like 17,000. It's like kind of cheap if you think about it, actually. But to me, that's like
Mhm.
money I can live off and be a pro comic artist. So I was into it. So I was like, yeah, 20,000 for a new book. Maybe they say yes, this will be awesome. They say no. But yeah, I made way more than that on this, and this number, obviously. But even if you think of like, I've kept selling it in the future campaigns too. Like it's one of my best selling books. So um, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. So like I said, started looking around and hearing about CG and everything. So I didn't really get a chance in this one. So I did just back your short stories, and I made sure I picked this up because this looked really cool, and just like
Oh,
Earthbound had a good buzz about it. Everyone seems to have good things to say about this one too. So I'm excited to finally get a chance to read it when it comes in.
nice, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But from the beginning, my work gives like there's a fair amount of buzz and conversation. Not everyone likes the art, but then people will kind of debate. And yeah, like I don't know, the the right I even the writing, like it'll be like people kind of argue, but it's like a cool kind of argument. It benefits me because it's
Sure.
like more, yeah, I'm just more in the sphere or whatever.
Right on. That's cool. So, real quick before we go on, because you mentioned your art, and I have definitely seen the the debates about your art style. I'm personally a fan of it, but I noticed in I can't remember. I think it was on your first Earthbound campaign. You did do sketches and whatnot, and your sketches have definitely a different style than what you're publishing.
Oh yeah.
Like a little bit more detailed. So basically, my question is this: in this more open style for Foreign Agent and Earthbound and whatnot, that's a conscious decision, I'm assuming, to do it that way.
Yeah, I think that comes from I think the sketches I did were pen and paper, which I don't do too much of anyway. And it does look different. It's just a completely different style. And it's still, even that's still like loose and weird, but it just because of the fact it's pen and paper, it kind of feels more rendered and more detailed. And
Yeah.
it can like look cool, but it takes me forever and it's a big headache. But although I do want to do a book that's that style eventually, but I got to kind of figure out the right one and have the time and however that goes. But yeah, and then this style, if I draw digitally, it just naturally gets a lot of it's with Control Z. So I'm like undoing the line and just getting the stroke and an energetic stroke. It's kind of different. It's almost like apples to oranges, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of describing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the Earthbound Part 2, so your backers and well, your let's just go off your backer numbers are going up, and I just had a question, like, obviously they're hopefully, if you're doing everything right and you're telling good stories on the basic level and you're building that fan base, they'll most likely go up. But did you do anything specific, like as far as streaming or anything from your first one, 432 backers, up to let's go up to Earthbound Part 2, you're over 1,000 backers now. Were you doing like more streaming? Were you going on other people's shows, or were do you know of, or do you remember
Ye-
anything that you were doing to try to, get
I a
more
little.
views?
I have a little bit of a theory. Maybe one is that Earthbound 2, that number, it was over kind of a long time. Like I think it was in demand for like 6 months. So it might have been
Okay,
like a 9 month period where it raised 80,000 in 9 months, which is a really long time
sure.
to do that. So people are trickling in, and that might even be longer than the other ones were raised for. But over that time too, like that one, it actually didn't launch on Ethan's channel. Sometimes Ethan will help me launch,
Mhm.
and then you get this huge beginning opening. And Earthbound 2 didn't. It kind of just slowly people would didn't know about it because it's not even super out there, but then they're just finding out about it and being like, oh yeah, I read Earthbound 1, I liked it, I want to back it. So it was trickling in way more steady. Sometimes I see campaigns where a lot of mine will do this too, where they do a ton in the beginning, then almost nothing in the middle, and then quite a bit at the end, and then that's kind of it. But
Okay.
Earthbound 2 was like steady, just like even. And it was because it didn't have a huge launch. I kind of just launched it. It didn't have a huge mailing list. People are very into that these days too. Mailing lists are a good idea. And it gives
Yeah.
you a gauge to like measure interest or whatever. But Earthbound 2, like I think it didn't have one. And if it did, it was like 200 people, which is kind of low for the for a book even to do 80K.
Did you just
Um,
not want to do a mailing list for that one, or do you just what
I
happened?
hadn't like I hadn't even like figured that out yet, I guess, because
Oh,
it was
okay.
I was I think mailing list had kind of been a thing maybe for like 9 months before that, but I was still doing some other stuff and kind of head in the clouds or whatever. Now I'm doing mailing lists, but even now, like I haven't gotten like my biggest mailing list is just the Earthbound 2 backers. I can give them an update through Indiegogo and it'll hit 1,200. Yeah, because I've never got a mailing list above that anyway. So that's what
Oh,
one thing you do is you hit all your previous campaigns, give them an update to let them know about the new one. So that will naturally grow it. But the biggest thing is I think I whatever the lineup, if it's yeah, it's just that they did have good word of mouth. Those early books, people
okay.
did like them, and there was buzz. And then so people would Earthbound 1 specifically is kind of a incomplete story, but not an unsatisfactory not like a bullshit cliffhanger, but it's like just kind of not the finished story. And so part two, a lot of people came for that reason, and then they come into. But it is weird too because you do lose backers sometimes from like they'll like move or they'll forget or they lose interest. And it's not even that they didn't like the book. It's like just you slough off some. However, no matter what, even if it's like a really good book, some backers won't come back.
Right.
But new ones come on always too. So that you hope it's like a profit overall. You hope you're getting more than you're losing.
Yeah.
And you could lose a lot if it's like bad. If there's no word of mouth or it's unsatisfactory, they don't like it, then you could definitely lose a lot of backers that way.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So would you consider like Earthbound Part 2? I don't want to call it the breakout hit because I feel like, I mean, 792 backers for foreign agents is extremely well too, but like Earthbound 2, I think what caught my eye the most about that one was that trailer going around with, everyone's kind of reviews of Earthbound 1, and
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like that caught a lot of good buzz for you too. Was you feel like that kind of broke out and like everyone kind of was more maybe not discovering you, but discovering you on another level maybe?
Maybe because I guess the time I really feel it, it's like the acceleration is when you feel it the most. Like even just natural physics, or like if you're in a car, you'll feel it at the beginning always the most because that's when the car is like accelerating. And for me, Earthbound 1 is always like that. That was like where I was in a dream and I couldn't believe it. And
Yeah.
then now it's kind of been steady where like people know who I am within Comic Skate. People know me. They say they know me if I hop on Ethan's stream. And I have like some dedicated fans, and it's not necessarily 1,200. It's like maybe around 800 or something.
Mhm.
And I'm always trying to grow that number. But yeah, I mean, when we're talking about, it's interesting. Part of this discussion is the next book's Nosferatu, which admittedly is way more niche, but that was 900 backers. And then
Right.
now I'm doing the short stories, which is even more niche, and that might not even hit 900. So we'll see how that goes. It gets me itching. I'm like, I want to do another Earthbound just to hope to get that number back up. But
Yeah.
actually, the next book after the short stories is a talking dog detective one I have. And then I have another one, and then it'll be like an Earthbound one, I think. But yeah,
Oh, okay. All
yeah.
right. Awesome. So, yeah, before we get to Nosferatu, I wanted to ask about this, the Narwhal Presents Disintegration Street.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I remember seeing you on different streams about it, saying that it was one of your favorite books, and is that what inspired you to like, try to get more eyeballs on it from
Yes.
their original
So
campaign?
one thing is the deal. It was a little bit similar, not not directly, but just a little bit similar to what your boy Zach had done with me,
Okay.
where so I was thinking like, oh, I'm a smaller compared to him. He was six-figure, huge campaigns. I'm kind of piggybacking onto his audience for some projects, and it can help boost my audience a little bit. And I was like, I could do that for someone also, but they'd have to be, even smaller, like yeah, like because he's way bigger than me, but then I could be bigger than someone. So I was like, if there's any of these books that I really like that I think might have underperformed compared to how good they are, this one kind of made me even have that idea because it wasn't like I wanted to do that, then went looking, then found this. I kind
Mhm.
of found Disintegration Street, really liked it, and just kept thinking. And I was like, maybe I can do something on my channel to get it some more backers. And it actually did work. It exceeded my expectations. I think we cracked 200, maybe a little more even of additional backers where the original campaign was like 40 or something. Yeah, I
Okay.
got 235. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty good amount. And I kept like $1,000 for myself or something for the trouble of promoting it and
Sure.
running the campaign and everything. And yeah, but it was cool. Maybe $800 I kept, something like, not too much though. And
Nice. And that's really
yeah,
cool.
but
That's to like just to piggyback on what you're saying, how you were working or you are working with Zach, like doing those combo books and getting his platform, his bigger platform, and you're kind of getting a slice off that. It's kind of cool that you're doing that for other, comic creators out there and trying to get more eyeballs on other projects that you like.
Yeah, and it's a kind of I'm definitely into it, but then it's I'm only into it when I'm really into the project and it's underperforming. Because there'll
Sure.
be ones that I really love, but they're doing fine. They don't need me. And for some reason, this one, because it is kind of extra artsy fartsy, and I
Okay.
do like that kind of stuff, even for me or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, and working with Brendan has been cool. And I might hire. We've been talking. I want to hire him to write something for me. He just write a straight up flat script, and I'll try and produce that as a comic. And that wouldn't even be like a Narwhal Presents. That would just be like a book I do where I've hired him as a writer. I may or may not draw it, but I
Sure.
think he's a really good writer. So it was cool meeting him and just kind of going through that process with him. The
That's cool.
networking thing, that's a lot of like yeah, it's like your boy Zach doing it to me with Brendan, but then even just you and me live streaming, hopping on live streams, super chats once in a while to the big channels. A lot of
Right.
that networking type stuff is surprisingly fruitful, and it's fruitful in ways that yeah, kind of unforeseen. Like if it's a future collaboration, or yeah, like even building. One of the things that happens with the marketing that's kind of funny is there's like subliminal marketing where you might go on a live stream and you won't actually get any sales, and maybe you're on the live stream for like 2 hours, so you're thinking like, oh, that's a bummer, I worked
Hmm.
for 2 hours and I didn't get any sales. But actually that was like, if there's 20 people watching or something, like on my channel, average of 20 people watching, sometimes more, sometimes as high as like 50. But yeah, so there's 20 people watching. Those 20 people, like, it's in their head now, and in a month, they'll see it again here and there, they'll see it on Twitter, then they'll buy it. And so you're kind of doing that, you're stacking up these times that they've seen it, because I think that's a stat too. They say like people often won't buy something until they've seen it like 3 or 4 times, and then they'll buy
Yeah.
it.
I was just gonna say that. I think I've heard something along that. It takes someone like a certain number of times before they see it again and again and again, and then like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll try it or I'll buy this now.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, quick side note, because I didn't even think about this before, but how did, if you don't mind explaining, how did that not networking, but that come together of you and your boy Zach Narzak? How did that initially start? Like, did you reach out to
Yeah,
him? Did he reach out to you?
it is. That is kind of an interesting story, because there's parts he doesn't even remember, kind of, because he started his channel. This is like almost pre CG. I feel like he started Comicscape basically, but
Yeah.
his channel had like 1,000 subscribers when I found it, and you see the videos, and I was kind of like, I. It's funny when you find something like that. I ended up binging all his videos in like a couple days, kind of, and being like, whoa, it feels like he's reading my mind, and you've been starved for this, like someone to even talk about this stuff, because it did feel like a what do you like, an Emperor's New Clothes kind of thing. And
Oh,
so it's
okay.
like, oh, he's the one who's pointing out that the Emperor is actually naked, and it's very like refreshing. And so I emailed him right away, and I was like, based on the way you're critiquing books, I feel like I might have a book that you might like. I'll mail you a digital copy. And he's like, sure. And I sent it to him, and he's like, oh, it won't open. And we never talked again. And I think I might have even said like, oh, like you got to do this. And he kind of had moved on, because he gets like a ton of emails a day.
Sure, I
So
bet.
then, yeah, so then he's just around. I do some fan art. He did respond a little bit to my style early too. He's like, he tweeted, he used to be on Twitter, and he's like, I find this style very compelling. And then some people again would argue with him or whatever, but he was kind of on my side early, and we had talked about maybe doing something where I would just work for him real early with that. And he ended up stopping that one too. He's like, I think I need to stay in the like more commercial superhero stuff. I can't do too much artsy fartsy stuff just yet. And I was like, oh,
Mm,
okay. So then he just like, yeah, so I'm just kind of out there. So he knows who I am, but we've only emailed twice or whatever. Then he did back Earthbound though, and he got Earthbound. And then he just did a review of Earthbound, but that was like kind of one for me, like the famous review or whatever, where he
right.
was like super kind of, yeah, like giving it a really positive review, although a little bit like ambiguous in funny ways too. Like I don't think he ever says it's amazing. He just says like it's like special and different, kind of. He says stuff like that. But he goes, I have never read a book like this ever. But
Mhm.
um, so that him doing that, and it was like a recommendation. He was into it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but it sold out overnight. That was what happened. And so that was like, yeah, like I don't know if it was like a couple thousand or what. It had gone up a bunch overnight and it had literally sold out. So then I closed the campaign and quit. And then I quit Fred Meyer. So from that point though, he actually did kind of have an interest in me. He was like curious about me. So we were emailing a little bit. He's like, "What's your deal? Like, how old are you? Are you like a kid or what?" And so we were just emailing, and then I think I suggest I was like, we were talking once in a while about collaborating. I'd still potentially be into that. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So he was really gung ho. And then that whole kind of the whole Narzac process basically started from there. Once he'd read Earthbound, I reached out, and then he was way into it from there. And
Okay.
he's been great to work with. He's a good guy and fascinating dude. He's kind of aloof, or like we're still not exactly friends really, but we email quite a bit still,
Okay.
and I do like him. And
More like more like almost like work associates or something like that.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I was curious about that. All right. So yeah, we're getting to the end of your campaigns. You went with Nosferatu, which is very cool. Um, just what I guess what made you want to redo Nosferatu the movie as
Yeah,
as a graphic novel?
yeah, and this is another one that I had been kind of working on in the background, and then it was done. So I was like, well, I guess I'll release it as a book. But it also timed out with the 100th anniversary of the film. So all these
Right.
things are coming together. I'm like, all right, I need to do this, make this an actual campaign. But it started just kind of years before, late at night. I would be kind of brain dead, but I still might want to work on something a little bit and almost to unwind. And I'm like, I need like a low stakes project. I'm like, what if I like adapted a silent film? Then I'm not even writing anything. I'm kind of just scribbling. And so I kind of flirted with that idea, messed around with it a little bit, and then did kind of jump in and start working on that. And it became a thing where I could include it in the sketchbooks that were accompany the Earthbound campaigns. So I did have a little bit of a deadline where I need to get these pages done, but a lot of them were, yeah, like just making sure it's like a little more relaxed and low stakes to work on. And when I released the bigger campaign, I did end up remastering quite a bit of the art because I had gotten better. I didn't, yeah, I wanted to try and make it better or whatever.
Sure. Sure. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I backed this one also, and I thought it was a cool idea, and it's actually given me like an idea. Like I said in the beginning, I do all ages and kids comics stuff like that. So it kind of inspired me to look at some like public domain stuff that's been out there for a long time. And so I'm working just on the script and thumbnailing stuff of the original Adventures of Pinocchio, and trying to see
Oh,
if I
that's
might,
awesome.
yeah, I might be able to do that in the future. But this was
Cool.
I never thought about, because you see people redo stuff that's public domain from comics or even books or anything, but I never thought about redoing a movie or something like that into a graphic novel. So that was an awesome idea. Um, yeah, so you're still doing good. 900 backers when it closed, 730. So still going. And I noticed do you do a lot of streaming on your own YouTube channel, or do you just kind of link up and try to stream with other people?
I do stream on my channel, but a lot of times it's to promote other people.
Okay,
Like once a week, I'll try and do. This is even like in the last 2 months, I've gotten back on it. I used to do it a lot more and then didn't do it for a while. But yes, I don't usually stream where I'm just drawing or hanging out anymore. I used to do some of that too, but
cool. Awesome. All right. So, and then we will finish up with your campaigns, your current one right now. I would like to apologize that I don't have a bigger audience, because I know this is your last 3 days of your first 30, or your second 30.
it's the first 30, and I'll extend it, but maybe just 2 weeks. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Yeah, and then it'll go in demand for a little bit too. But yeah, I'm curious where this one lands, and some of the things like going through my head. I'm like, yeah, short stories a little harder to sell. I can kind of feel that. Some
Sure.
of it might be the competition is stiff right now, stiffer than it's ever been. There's like 10 awesome campaigns at least right now that are like live, including
Yeah.
some huge ones from the XTC dudes. All those guys, the Comicsgate Kings, like all have books right now.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah. And then on top of that, it's like, yeah, gas is high, inflation's high, the economy's not so good. So, yeah, people like deciding what books. Um, and yeah, so I just don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this hits that, if it hits 900 backers. That would
Sure.
be like a solid one where I'd be like, okay, I'm pretty sure I got like 900 people that will almost follow me anywhere.
Okay.
And that would be cool to have that threshold, but always trying to grow it. And I mean, I am thinking about like, you know, or like Earthbound 2 was 80 thou. I'm like, what could I do to maybe get six figures? And
Mhm.
there's different like guesses, it's like putting your eggs in a different basket. One of them is like maybe working with a different artist where I'm just the writer. Maybe doing a book, yeah, where it's all traditional art, all these different things I can kind of try. But in the meantime, the amount of success that I'm having, it's keeping the wheels on the cart. Everything's going smooth, and I'm in a space in my life right now where I'm still living kind of the bachelor 20 something lifestyle, although I'm in my mid
Okay.
30s now. But yeah, so it's like I don't have that many expenses. I don't have a family or anything. I'm
Sure.
putting I'm putting all this money back into comics, and a lot of the books next year are going to be like, yeah, like ones collaborations where I'm like hiring people. So I got this little mini production company going basically with this Comicsgate success. And
Nice.
yeah, it's been awesome. It's been like it's really fun. It's like funny. It's like slow motion, but you're just like you're like grateful and then also really wanting to grow it. Both those things at the same time, kind of like, this is so awesome. I need to grow it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I definitely, you definitely feel that. That's awesome when you like, you get that buzz, I guess, is for lack of a better term, like of something's going good and you just want to kind of keep building up on that momentum. What
Yeah.
did you always originally want to, work with other writers or artists for this, or did that just kind of come about by happenstance?
It's been a little bit. It didn't actually start necessarily that way. It As I realized, like, there's a real time limit to how many I can do if it's just me, and it
Hmm.
goes way faster if you hire people. And I like that. Like, even if I can still do stuff myself, but I could get two books going at once, three, four, if I'm willing to work with other people. And some of it's like finding, yeah, like people that I really like their art, like better than mine even, or whatever, and then like learning to collaborate. I'm still like learning some stuff about kind of how it works, and what artists like, and you know communication and
Sure.
collaboration and all that kind of stuff. But I am more and more interested in that for sure.
Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah, this definitely looks cool. I know you already said it before, but short stories. I think I've heard from like other people in the comic book industry, maybe not just comic book and publishing industry, like anthologies are kind of a tough sell sometimes when you just have a bunch of different stories from different writers or not. So hopefully it helps that you're the single thread throughout the whole thing here, either a writer or artist, anything like that.
I
Because
know. One thing I'm thinking is a lot of anthologies actually aren't that good, kind of for that reason you mentioned. And
sure.
in my experience, when I think of it too, is like there'll be one that's really good and like 10 that aren't that good. Is like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
maybe it's three that are good and eight that aren't that good, but it's never whether they're all good or a lot or even a majority. I'm like, if I can just get that, like that alone will kind of stand out. People will notice that, like, oh, he actually made an anthology where every story's good.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm trying to do.
awesome. Cool. Well, I hope it does good. You said you might not go for another full 30. You're gonna like maybe possibly do a shorter after this first 30.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. I can't decide, but yeah, maybe 2 weeks, and then yeah, some in demand, and
Okay,
we'll see
for sure, for sure. I
how it
will
goes.
definitely update this video after we're done and have the link in the description down there for you.
Oh, cool.
Alrighty. So
What
yeah, I guess. Oh, go ahead.
what's what's new with you, or what are you working on? And you got a timeline for your campaign, or?
I have a loose timeline. It's wanting to launch in early 2023, so early next year. It's called The Amazing Red Bee. It's a all ages kids comic. I'm telling everyone, if your kids or even you like Dogman or like Alt Baltazar and Franco's Tiny Titans, stuff like that, then that's gonna be like right in the alleyway of the kind of story I'm telling. It's basically
Cool.
about a kid. He's the Amazing Red Bee. He's a superhero of Hive City, and then a new superhero comes to town, Ultra Dude, and Ultra Dude has all his powers are more ultra than Red Bee. So it kind of has the moral of a story of like, how do you be a superhero when someone's more super than you, and what can you
Oh
do?
yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm working on. I have it all thumbnailed. I'm kind of drawing it. Well, I am drawing it right now, and it's I'm thinking it's going to be either between 90 to 110 pages. It's going to be a graphic novel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And I like the sound of that Pinocchio one too. So
Yeah.
when you get ready to launch, let me know because you can definitely come on my channel and we'll promote it there. There's a
Oh,
whole
okay.
circuit you can do though. Yeah, like Mandy Summers will often help promote a Michael Bancroft.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
I want to make sure that's where I have the mailing list up right now. So I'm just trying to, promote the mailing list and get sign up. So kind of get the word out for it because obviously no one knows who I am. So yeah, that's
yeah,
why I'm hoping to launch early next year and have a few people on that list so that we can kind of get a little bit of the word out for it when it does launch.
cool. It's funny. I actually don't know this like advice. I'll just tell you. Like people say January is tough for one reason is because it's right after Christmas, so people have spent their Christmas money.
Oh, okay.
But then sometimes you get Christmas money, so they spend that. And then the last thing is people are scared of launching in January. So if you actually do launch, then you wouldn't have that much competition, which actually that could potentially be the best. But then
Yeah.
people might already be thinking that and then doing it, then you have a ton of competition, then it's the worst. But
Yeah.
I would say to go ahead and do it if especially if you get the lay of the line, you feel like there's not going to be too much competition, then do it.
Cool. Yeah, maybe I'll try to shoot for that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, and but then there's one other funny nuance to it is if you launch when there's a lot of competition, then everyone's promoting their book. There's a lot of live streams to go on and
Yeah.
kind of cross promote. So it's kind of a little in the middle. But even if you launch and then later on more coming or whatever, you can be in demand or late campaign and still cross promote or whatever when it happens.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. And good advice.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I guess that is it. I did have a few questions, like kind of like general questions about, building an audience and crowdfunding before I let you go, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go
Um,
for it.
First, I guess maybe I should maybe I should have led with this one in the beginning, but because we are talking about CG and whatnot, just kind of your intro, I guess, like how did you find out about CG and whatnot?
I pretty much just discovered your boy Zach's YouTube, and
Okay.
then somehow I think even through him I kind of got into Twitter, and then back way back in the day it was Captain, I forget his name now. Is it Captain? I don't know. There were other YouTube channels that have since like fallen off, and some of them are like
Um,
bitter, kind of, and they go anti CG or whatever. But yeah. So then I was just lurking on Twitter, and then the pitched foreign agent, they denied it. So then I full on started interacting on Twitter and trying to get on live streams. I started drawing a bunch of fan art. That's what got me on Ethan's stream is some Cyberfrog fan art.
oh, okay. That's right. You mentioned that. That's right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, as far as campaigns go, let's see what I wrote here. What do you no? What do you think is or what do you think, or what do you see as maybe one thing that campaigns do that you might advise against doing? Like, I know sometimes people put like when they're putting their description down here, they'll make all the letters in like some crazy font or something like that. Do you have
Yeah,
any?
yeah. I got a couple like that. One is with your tiers. Don't like name cutesy name for your tiers. You should just say what they are because people don't know what they are. So they see the cutesy name. Like it'll say like the aviator tier. And they're
Right.
like, okay, what's the aviator though? And I did that on my early campaigns. I think I like the bounty hunter, the blah blah blah, the wrestler.
Sure.
And it's like, no, just say what they are and say how much money it is, because that's what people want to know.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. And you
and
have
a big, sorry, or what were you going to say? Then I'll go.
oh no, I was gonna say you have a short, sweet, and simple on this campaign here in Narwhal Shorts Compendium, both shorts collections, and then the completion is the 7 books. So yeah,
Yeah, and actually on this one, it's structured a little weird too, because once you click in, then all my books are available as add-ons. So there's like 10 add-ons,
right.
and that actually is going to be complicated when I fulfill, but it's not the end of the world. It means you go through the spreadsheet and you have to organize it, so it might take a couple hours, but then it's fine. So that's kind of an okay way to do that. You boys did that for a recent campaign too, kind of the weird one where he did Jawbreakers for $1.
I was
So
gonna
you
say for
click
the dollar
that,
one, right?
then you see a ton of add-ons, but he's just $1 tier to get in. That's no one's going to do that but him. But
Hmm.
that's a kind of a creative way to do it. And one quick random advice for like growing your audience. One of them is embrace the memes and don't have too much pride or too much of an ego. But maybe you don't want to necessarily turn yourself into a clown. Not everyone really wants to do that. I actually do that more than average, probably. Um, but I'm kind of into it, or I think it's funny, but
Sure.
not everyone does. But definitely embrace the memes. Even people who are serious can kind of embrace the memes, and it's pretty funny. But you'll see people sometimes if they're not, if they have like a little too much pride or whatever, that
Mhm.
is definitely not a good uh, kind of thing. I think to even help with sales or whatever,
Yeah.
and then definitely don't, this might be obvious, but just don't be negative. Don't be like salty or start getting jealous or anything like that. Oh, and one random one is a funny thing that can happen is because of the way the campaigns work, they can have a really good launch. And maybe it's even like your second campaign is you have the audience, and maybe eventually you get on with Ethan and Ethan helps you launch. So you literally do like 10,000 in a day or more.
Hmm.
Then it kind of slows down because naturally that's just the way it happens because a lot of people back in the beginning. That feeling is kind of weird because you do get kind of high. You get a dopamine high when all the money's coming in. And then once that stops, the campaign's still fine. It's a very successful campaign, but it stops and you'll feel like kind of depressed. And I've had people DM me, they're like, "What's wrong? I'm depressed even though the campaign's doing really good." And I'm like, "I swear it's just like brain chemistry, but you got to
Oh,
just be
got it.
aware that that might happen."
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Good advice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, as far as the meme thing goes, I think Ethan was commenting on that thing that Gabe posted about pointing at Mark Brooks' sign. I think maybe a week or two ago. I guess he didn't want that meme out there at first, and Ethan was like, "Hey, it's funny, everyone likes it," and he, kind of changed his mind about it. So yeah, definitely don't take certain things too serious if you can help it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so those are things that you probably shouldn't do or you'd advise against. Is there anything like you see that you wish you would do or you wish you would see more other campaigns and creators taking advantage of or doing something like that? Either it's like a neat trailer or graphics for what they're presenting, like preview pages or anything like that.
Yeah, what is it? It's nice to have quite a bit of finished art. It's nice to
Okay.
have when almost all the art's even done, so it's a kind of quick fulfillment is always nice. Um, and nice videos, nice. It's nice if they're promoting a lot, honestly, because it's kind of nice to see people out there just promoting their book or whatever,
Mhm.
Twitter and YouTube. I don't know. I don't have anything too specific, unfortunately, about that one. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
Embrace the meme though. That's one.
yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for joining me here. First live stream with another person, so I appreciate that and suffering through any of the speed bumps I probably had right now.
Yeah, no,
And
it went good. The only one that's hilarious is you. If I didn't tell you, you would have done the whole stream
I
not
would
even
have,
being
I
live.
would have, because I thought I hit it. Maybe I hit like ready to go live or something like that. But
Yeah, I don't know what happened because usually when it does that countdown, it means it goes live, but then it wasn't, and you can see in the top corner whether or not you're live or whatever. But yeah,
oops, cancel that. All right, so let me get rid of this. Bring this back here. All right. So yeah, but yeah, thanks again. And yeah, I will put the links to everything in the description down below on YouTube right now. And yeah, I don't have any cool outros or anything like that, so I will end the broadcast right here. And thanks for everyone who else is watching this later on. And I'll see you later on.
Yeah, thank you.